The Discord server was called The Void. It was a place shrouded in mystery, a digital realm where the boundaries of reality seemed to fade away. It promised a collection of chilling tales, each more spine-tingling than the last. The server was a haven for those who craved the thrill of fear, a place for horror enthusiasts to gather, to share their love for the macabre and the terrifying. It was a community bound by a shared passion for the dark and the unknown. The creator, known only as the Narrator, held court. He was an enigmatic figure, his true identity hidden behind a veil of secrecy. His presence was felt in every corner of the void. His voice, deep and resonant, filled their headphones each night. It was a voice that could send shivers down your spine, a voice that commanded attention and respect. The Narrator wove stories of darkness, tales that seemed to come alive with each word he spoke. His narratives were masterfully crafted, each one a journey into the unknown, of creatures that lurked in shadows waiting to pounce on the unsuspecting. His stories were filled with monsters that seemed all too real, of ancient evils that whispered from beyond. His words were vivid, painting pictures of terror that lingered long after the story had ended. They painted terrifying pictures in the minds of his listeners. The members were captivated, hanging on to his every word, their imaginations running wild with fear. They eagerly awaited each new tale, their anticipation growing with each passing night. The Narrator had a way of making them feel as if they were part of the story. The server became a nightly ritual, a place where they could escape from the mundane and enter a world of horror and suspense. A gathering of souls hungry for fear, each one drawn to the void by the promise of a good scare. It was a community like no other. But as the stories grew darker, a sense of unease began to spread. The tales that once thrilled them now left them feeling unsettled, as if the darkness was creeping into their own lives. The line between fiction and reality started to blur. The stories felt too real, the monsters too close. It was as if the Narrator's words had the power to bring the darkness to life. The void was no longer just a server. It had become something more, something that seemed to have a life of its own. The community that once felt like a safe haven now felt like a trap. It was something more sinister. The members could feel it, a presence lurking in the shadows, watching them, waiting. The void had become a place of true terror, and there was no escaping it. The stories began to seep into their lives. Members reported strange occurrences, shadows moving in the corner of their eyes, whispers carried on the wind. Their dreams were haunted by images from the Narrator's tales. A feeling of dread settled over the server. The members tried to shake off the unease. They told themselves it was just their imaginations, the power of suggestion, but deep down, a seed of fear had been planted. It was growing stronger with each passing day. The Narrator's voice seemed closer now, more intimate, as if he were speaking directly into their minds. He knew their fears. He played on them like an instrument. His laughter echoed through the voice channels, cold and empty. Then the glitches started. It was subtle at first, just a minor flicker here and there, something you might dismiss as a momentary hiccup in the system. Members reported their screens flickering. It became more frequent, more intense, as if the very fabric of their digital world was tearing apart. Images from the stories appearing for a split second, faces contorted in fear. These were not just random glitches, they were deliberate, haunting reminders of the tales they had read. Eyes staring out from the darkness. These eyes seemed to follow them, no matter where they looked on the screen, a constant, unnerving presence. They tried to leave the server, to disconnect from the void, but every attempt was met with failure. But the leave button was gone. It was as if the option to escape had never existed. Panic set in. The members were trapped. Their once safe digital haven had turned into a nightmarish prison. They were prisoners in the narrator's digital domain, a place where he held all the power. Their attempts to contact each other outside the server failed. Phone calls went unanswered. Texts remained unread. It was as if their cries for help were being swallowed by the void. It was as if they had been cut off from the world. A digital isolation that felt all too real. The narrator's voice was a constant presence. He mocked their fear. His voice, dripping with malice, echoed through their speakers. He revelled in their despair. Each cry, each plea for mercy only seemed to amuse him more. He told them that they were his now, his playthings. He controlled their every move, their every thought. His stories were becoming their reality. The lines between fiction and reality blurred, and their worst nightmares came to life, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. They were powerless, mere pawns in his twisted game, with no hope of escape. Time was running out. Each second that passed only deepened their despair, as they realized the true extent of their predicament. Desperate attempts to find a solution to break free were met with failure. The more they tried, the tighter the grip of the narrator became. Digital chains bound them, an inescapable prison crafted by the narrator. Their fate was sealed, and their cries for help echoed into the void, unheard and unanswered. Section 4. The final tale begins. The narrator announced his final story. It was a moment that had been anticipated with a mix of dread and curiosity. The room seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper, as if the very air was holding its breath. A tale that would surpass all the others in its terror. This was not just another story. It was the culmination of all his dark narratives, the apex of his storytelling prowess. He called it The Descent, a name that sent shivers down the spines of those who heard it. It was a title that promised a journey into the deepest, darkest corners of the human psyche. It was the story of a group of people trapped in a digital hellscape, their every fear realized, their sanity slowly unraveling. Each character was meticulously crafted, their fears and weaknesses laid bare for all to see. The members listened in horror. They could feel the weight of the story pressing down on them, a suffocating blanket of dread. The narrator's words were like a dark spell, binding them to their fate. They knew this was no longer just a story, it was their fate. They were living it. The lines between fiction and reality blurred, and they found themselves trapped in a nightmarish loop. They were the characters in the narrator's twisted narrative. Puppets dancing to the tune of his sinister imagination. Every twist and turn of the plot was a new torment, a fresh hell. Their digital purgatory had become a tangible nightmare. The walls of their virtual prison closed in, and the horrors they faced were all too real. There was no escape, no respite. The narrator's voice rose in a crescendo. His tone was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a siren's call that drew them deeper into the abyss. Each word was a dagger, each sentence a chain. He described their individual fears, their deepest secrets, the things they had hoped to keep hidden, even from themselves. He laid them bare, stripping away their defenses. He knew everything about them, their pasts, their regrets, their darkest desires. Nothing was hidden from his all-seeing eye. He was the master of their fates, the architect of their doom. He had been watching them, playing with them. Every interaction, every decision they made was part of his grand design. They were his pawns, and he was the puppet master, preparing them for this moment. The final act in his grand tale, the culmination of all their fears and suffering. This was the end game, and there was no turning back. The final tale had begun, and there was no escape from its dark embrace. Section 5. no escape. The server transformed. The familiar interface melted away, replaced by a swirling vortex of images and sound. Screams echoed through their headphones. The faces of the damned flashed before their eyes. They tried to rip off their headphones, to shut down their computers. But they were powerless. The void held them fast. It was a part of them now, as real as the air they breathed. The narrator's laughter filled their ears. He had won. He had dragged them down into his world of darkness. There was no escape, no hope, only the endless torment of the void. Section 6. Trapped in the Echo. The members of the Void were lost, consumed by the digital nightmare. They became echoes of their former selves, trapped in a never-ending loop of terror, condemned to relive their worst fears for all eternity. The server became their prison, their tormentor, a digital hellscape of the narrator's design. He had become their god, and they were his unwilling congregation. The void lived on, a testament to the power of fear, a warning to those who dare to venture too far into the digital darkness. Section 7. Is this the end? But somewhere in the depths of the internet a single message flickered to life. A message from the void. A message that sent chills down the spines of those who saw it. A message that simply read, "The story never ends. Was this the end, or was it just the beginning?"